Hello friends, Dimitri here. This video is going to be different from what I've been uploading lately. Well, you saw the title. Today, instead of bragging about my servers in my home lab, I wanted to tell you about my photography journey. In addition to tech, I recently picked up a video and photo hobby again. As a kid, I used to love snapping pictures. Then after a prolonged break, I started getting back into it slowly. But it wasn't until about 4 years ago, when I got a mirrorless camera, did it become excessively expensive. My dad first sparked my love for photography in the early 80s. As a kid, I was always curious about his camera, so-called 2, but he would baby that thing and wouldn't let my clumsy hands anywhere near it. Finally, when I must have been around 10 or 11 years old, he bought me my own camera as a birthday present. Smena 8M. It was a Soviet-era, entry-level, fully manual, black and white 35mm film camera. It looked, felt, and sounded more like a toy than a real camera.
You are a toy!
But it didn't matter. I was hooked. I took it on every school trip and function, snapping blurry and overexposed photos of my classmates. When my dad got tired of paying for printing out my masterpieces, he also bought me an enlarger with a developer kit. Trays, funnels, chemicals, safe light, thermometer, development tech with the reels, the works. He converted a corner of my bedroom into a darkroom, complete with blackout curtains. I was a real photographer. In 9th through 11th grades, my best friend and me spent every free moment shooting, developing, and printing comic book-like adventure collages. Of course, it was mostly self-incriminating evidence of us goofing off and playing hokey from school, but we fancied ourselves filmmakers. After our family came to America,
What does dumb fuck mean?
photography wasn't really a priority. I worked part-time jobs while taking college courses, which didn't leave a lot of time for a hobby. It took a while, but when I finally started working full-time and could afford a camera, I bought one. It was another plasticky toy that took terrible photos, but again, didn't matter. I was just happy to have my hobby back. Throughout the mid to late 90s, I've used various film cameras on vacations, at family events, and outing with friends. They were cheap, almost disposable, but they allowed me to little by little get better in photography. In the early 2000s, digital cameras started to become affordable for the general public, so I got myself a point-and-shoot with a 3-megapixel sensor. That's right, 3 whole megapixels.
Is that a lot?
No longer would I need to bring rolls of film in for processing, and if I ever did need to print photos out, I could even choose specific ones beforehand. Unfortunately, that camera got wet and died when we got caught on an open airboat in Florida Everglades during a rain. My next camera was a Kodak CX7330. It was a disappointing downgrade in terms of picture quality, but it kept not dying, so I kept using it.
Why won't you die?
Around 2006, a coworker who was also in the photography hobby got me to upgrade to a much better point-and-shoot, Xelim EX-Z750 by Casio. It had a higher resolution of 7.2 megapixels, a huge 2.5-inch screen, comparatively speaking, and a much faster 3x zoom lens. It could even shoot video. Low, standard definition, 480p resolution, but still video! After our first baby was born in 2007, I began filming far more often than taking photos. Capturing my son's first words, first step, and all the other firsts made much more sense as movies, not as prints. Decent camcorders at the time were still far out of our budget though. Around 2011, the 1080p high-definition video started making its way into affordable point-and-shoots, so I got myself one. Sony Cybershot DSC HX5V. The name just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? This one had 10 megapixel resolution for stills, and finally, I had full HD video in my hands.
Okay, it's happening!
That camera had no stabilization or any other bells and whistles, but at least my videos no longer looked like 2011-2012 was also the time where cell phone cameras became worth using, so my photos were now evenly split between the Sony and my Android phone. Video? Not so much.
Not so much.
As the years ticked by and the phones kept getting better and better, I caught myself reaching for the Sony camera less frequently. By around 2015, video capabilities of cell phones pretty much caught up to the point and shoots. So I got rid of the Sony and began using my phone full-time for both stills and video. When our second kid was around 3 years old, we started going on vacations more often. Caribbean was our favorite destination, either by cruise ships or staying on the islands at resorts. Having the phone be my primary camera became kind of dangerous because of all the sand and water at the beach.
I don't like sand.
I got wind of this scrappy startup called GoPro that was making tiny waterproof action cams you could dive with. So I picked one up for even cheaper than the Sony camera cost me. The model was Hero HD, and it shot decent quality video. It's got its fair share of problems. First, it has a non-removable internal battery, which means you can't use the camera while it's charging. Then, there is no screen, so you have no idea what you're filming. You just kind of guess and hope that whatever you're pointing at is being captured by the wide-angle lens. Finally, the camera is built into its waterproof housing and can't be removed, which means the sound is always muffled because the microphone is covered up. Also, if you accidentally break off the fragile mounting legs, there is no way to replace them. But hey, what do you expect for $200? It was still better than whatever my phone at the time could do, so it became my main video shooter. GoPro released a new model every single year, but I settled on skipping a generation. In 2 releases that usually add features that I actually wanted. With the release of Hero 3 and 4, the camera finally came out of its shell, literally. Hero 5 and 6 went waterproof without the need for special housing for up to 30 feet underwater. More importantly though, Hero 6 offered the new H.265 format for smaller files. Hero 7 didn't offer much over the 6, but Hero 8 brought many exciting upgrades. It had much better video stabilization, greatly improving my handheld footage by removing shakes and jitters. It also had built-in foldable mounting legs, so that you didn't need to use a cage like with the previous models. The biggest change was introduction of add-ons like the Media Mod that I found super useful for its amazing audio quality. Hero 9 was a huge jump over the 8 in terms of specs. A bump in resolution from 12 to 20 megapixels, 5K 30 frames per second video mode, and larger batteries. But they changed the dimension of the camera again, making add-ons that I bought for the 8 incompatible. I waited another year until Hero 10 was released. And a good thing too, because apparently the 9 model was plagued with all kinds of issues, like overheating and lag, and generally being very unstable. Hero 10 mostly fixed all of those problems with a new and faster processor which doubled the performance of the camera. It also offered new video resolution options with higher frame rates, which is especially useful for slowing the footage down in editing. Thankfully, my other accessories still work, like for example this snap mounts magnetic system for easily moving the camera from, say, a selfie stick to an under-the-shirt backplate. Huh? For a little while in 2017, I even added a DJI Mavic Pro drone to my video arsenal. Filming from above gives you interesting and unique angles. I really got into it and of course couldn't resist buying a bunch of accessories for the drone. Traveling with it though quickly became a hassle, especially abroad. Drones are outright banned on cruise ships for good reasons, and you need to read up quite a lot on laws regarding drone usage of countries you're planning to visit. I took it with me on only a couple of vacations to places where flying drones was allowed. Or more accurately, not explicitly forbidden, even though I got some stunning shots. Arguing with the resort's workers was so exhausting that I swore I'd never pack it with me again. They thought I was spying on other guests. What's worse, because of the heavy local restrictions that went into effect in 2023, I'm not even allowed to fly a drone anywhere near my house anymore, so it's just been sitting in my drawer for the past 5 years. I should just sell the freaking thing. Back to action cams though. The biggest issue I have with them is that their tiny sensors just don't perform well in low light scenarios. And by low light, I don't mean at night or in dark basements. Just bring it indoors and the video turns into a smeary, jello-y mess as the stabilization software fails to cope with the lack of light. Even though with each successive generation of their action cams, GoPro claims to improve the low light performance, they still suck donkey balls.
Did you just say donkey balls?
I film my kids indoors a lot of the time, like at birthday parties and other family events, and I needed something better for those scenarios. Don't get me wrong, I still bring my Hero 10 to the beach and into the water. For everything else though, it was time for a real camera. In 2022, I started researching DSLRs and mirrorless cameras. I went on a lot of photo websites, watched a ton of photography YouTube channels, joined a bunch of Discord servers. Everywhere I saw similar recommendation: buy used. Sure, that new camera smell is irresistible. Simply irresistible! But I could save hundreds of dollars on the second-hand market. The fact that I've been snapping pictures all my life doesn't mean that I'm not still a newbie, and it doesn't make sense dropping half a fortune on brand new gear for me to learn on. Plus, if in the future I end up not liking a certain system and I want to switch,
huge steaming ball of foreshadowing.
Recouping my costs would be much easier with used gear. After a few months of looking at different options and weighing various advice, I pulled the trigger on a Fujifilm X-T3 with an 18 to 55mm zoom lens for just shy of $1,500. OMFG. What a vast improvement over action cams, point and shoots and cell phones. I spent the next 2 years glued to this camera. Every chance I got, I went to a local park or boardwalk to experiment with various knobs and dials. Trying different techniques, different subjects, different styles. Loved every moment of it. Of course, you know me, I started kitting out the camera and that's when I got guess. Gear acquisition syndrome is a real ailment, folks. Many photographers' wallets suffer from it every day. I got a cage, wireless microphones, a gimbal, flash with a remote trigger. I could go on.
I could go on.
Do.
I also got a couple more lenses because the one that came with the camera was kinda meh, as most kit lenses are. After a couple of years, I found myself mostly shooting video, but the X-T3 is primarily a stills camera. I wanted to upgrade to a video first body, and if Fuji's lineup, none are better than the X-H2S. I sold the X-T3 for $1,000 and bought the X-H2S over eBay again for just a little over $2 grand. Not a bad deal as the new ones were going for over $2,500.
Damn good deal.
And then the focus gate happened. Sometime in mid-2024, Fuji released a big firmware upgrade that brought some nice features to this camera. Unfortunately, in the process, they completely ruined the autofocus performance. There was a huge outcry online from affected users. To say that Fujifilm didn't handle it very well would be an understatement. After months of complete silence, they denied that the issue even existed in the first place. Then they released several updates in quick succession claiming to fix autofocus. It didn't. As far as I know, to this day, the autofocus on multiple Fujifilm cameras is hopelessly broken. What's even worse, they blocked the ability to roll the firmware back to a previous version, so anyone who updated hoping that the autofocus would finally be fixed are now stuck.
And they patched the way we can downgrade our cameras.
That whole experience left a really bad taste in my mouth. X-H2S is supposedly Fujifilm's flagship consumer camera, and yet they can't seem to fix whatever they themselves broke. Last winter, I decided that I've had enough. If Fuji is set on straight up abandoning their customers, it's time to abandon Fuji. I sold the camera with all the accessories and lenses and converted to the Sony ecosystem. I recouped about $1,800 from the camera body and then traded the rest away for equivalent Sony gear. When choosing which Sony camera to buy, I was torn between two models, Alpha 6700 and FX30. On one hand, FX30 is a video-centric camera body with many helpful features, like an internal fan to prevent overheating, dual card slots for redundant recording, better screen, and a full HDMI port. But it is quite a bit more expensive, and it doesn't have a viewfinder, which makes taking photos more complicated. In the end, I went with the 6700. It's got a more advanced version of autofocus than FX30 thanks to the dedicated AI chip in it. But the viewfinder was also important to me because I still want to be able to take photos with this camera, and framing is much easier with an EVF. Plus, with the cost savings, I could afford to buy another lens. I used a 6700 from Facebook Marketplace with a Viltrox autofocus lens, cost me $1,500. Then I traded my Fuji zoom lens for another camera body that I'm filming these videos on. That is a Sony a6400 with the Viltrox 23mm f1.4 lens. I also bought a used Tamron 17 to 70mm f2.8 zoom lens for around $600. It's a nice all-rounder, perfect for travel. It's maybe a little on the large side, but it fits well enough in my bag. I also traded my Sigma 16mm 1.4 prime lens for the exact same model on the Sony mount. In a little over a year that I've had this setup, I haven't regretted switching systems even once. I'm still getting used to it, but the autofocus is world class. And here we are. Over the last 5 years, I've learned more about photography than I did in the previous 30. Exposure triangle, composition, leading lines, rule of thirds. Videography is another area where I've started to feel like maybe I know what I'm doing. Shutter angle, autofocus, ninja walk, storytelling. Editing photos and videos is also something I think I've progressed in. Masking, touch-ups, color grading, compositing. There's still lots to learn. I don't believe for a second that I could pass for a professional. And yet, I do have a paying photography gig coming up. Will it lead to something? I don't know. Maybe. A career change at this stage could be fun. Thanks for taking this trip down the memory lane with me. I'm working on more videos about my hobbies like my home lab, self-hosting, and even those fish tanks in the background. If this is something that interests you, feel free to subscribe and leave me a comment or three. See you in the next one.